Hello everyone and welcome back to Sports Today. My name is Sharon Rayat and today we are going to be previewing the last Formula One Grand Prix race of a triple header that has been happening since, of course, the F1's summer break came to an end. So first we had the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, you then had the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort, and this week you are going to have the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. Now, Monza is a wonderful old-fashioned circuit. It's nicknamed the Temple of Speed, and it's one of those circuits where, of course, you're very dependent on straight-line speed to actually get the job done in terms of, race pace and car setup. So, obviously, there's quite a few questions going into this particular race, and we've picked out 5 questions which we think would be the most pertinent to answer ahead of this particular race. Now, the first one might seem a little bit familiar to you. Can anyone stop this man? I'm going to give you a simple answer to that. Probably not. Why? Because the Red Bulls have fantastic straight line speed, and as I mentioned before, that's something that's very, very important in this particular circuit. Monza has a lot of straights, and generally speaking, besides a couple of course, chicanes, not much in the way of slow corners. So your straight line speed is important. Red Bull have that in spades, and they have a Max Verstappen who is very, very much in flying form, has an over 100-point lead in the championship, and doesn't look like he's going to be making mistakes, which can't really be said about their, closest title rivals, but we'll get to them in a bit. Simple fact is, Red Bull, since the summer break has, ended, they have been in imperious form. Not all of that is down to just their car being really good, but of course their car is really good, and they have the defending world champion in their seats, and well, they've been really good in terms of putting in consistent performances. So it's pretty clear who starts the favorite going into this weekend. It is, of course, Max Verstappen, which then brings us to the next question. What exactly is it that Ferrari and this man can do to maybe potentially stop that? Now, as I said, one of the reasons why the races haven't quite been as, let's just say, hotly contested is because of, at least partially down to a certain technical ruling that came about in the middle of the season. That technical ruling, of course, came about due to the underflow, and it affected the underflow. It seemingly has affected Ferrari's underflow more than most, where, the FIA said that the underflow shouldn't be flexing more than a certain amount, and Ferrari's was, in fact, caught to be flexing. Now, it is worth noting that Ferrari chief Matteo Binotto has said that that's not really affected their speed, but they have seemingly lost a little bit of that, immense straight line speed that they had, at least before the start of the summer break. So what exactly is it that they can actually do to, get some of that speed back now that the flow has been fixed? We don't really know that for sure. Obviously, for Ferrari, there's a ton of issues, and each of those seem to be like a 7-headed dragon. If they solve one, another seems to pop up from out of nowhere. We thought that they had the fastest car in the beginning of the season, which they did, but it turned out that their engine was unreliable and their strategic calls even worse. So far, they haven't really been forced into a bad strategic call because in the previous 2 races, they've not really been close to competing for the race win. If that happens here by some, force of nature or something that they discover in car setup that might let them compete for a victory, what exactly, there's still, the fact to worry about as to what their strategy would be. Would they be able to make instant calls in the heat of the moment? That is something that all championship winning teams can do. Ferrari haven't demonstrated that ability yet, but they're also going to be in front of their home fans. So that might just count for a little something. On the other hand, if they manage to make the kind of bungle that they've been making through the season in front of their home fans, you best believe the Tifosi are going to let them know. So I would not be envious of both Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. They're going to have their work cut out for them unless, of course, they can get away with that all-important W. And speaking of wins, this man, Lewis Hamilton, and his team, Mercedes, came this close to a victory at Zandvoort, and of course there was a bit of a late strategic call that kind of ended up costing them that victory towards the end, because of course you remember the whole thing, we discussed it. Late safety car, they didn't pit Hamilton for softs, he ended up being overtaken, not just from the lead, didn't even get a podium finish, finished 4th. Now, can this circuit, the real question here is not whether or not Hamilton can close in on a win, but how good or bad will the W13 be on this circuit? We know for a fact that Mercedes 2022 car has a very tiny operating window in terms of it, being optimized in terms of setup. Now, they were miles off the pace at Spa-Francorchamps because they had to run a high ride height to avoid the bumps on the track, but in Zandvoort, where they could run the car as low as they would possibly want, they did look on the pace. However, that being said, Monza, as I said, is one of those circuits where, straight line speed is important. Mercedes haven't shown that much straight line speed, but they will be, of course, putting a new engine in Hamilton's car because there was some damage to the previous power unit that was, in fact, it was there used in Spa-Francorchamps. He ended up having that crash with Alonso. They've decided to actually replace his engine. So he's going to be taking a grid penalty, most likely starting from the back of the grid. We don't really know how those penalties work because, well, you saw it happen in Belgium as well. So many of them took engine penalties but were starting from the middle of the grid anyway. But Hamilton will be taking a grid penalty, but let's see how exactly the car looks in quali, because again, Monza is one of those tracks where you do get opportunities to overtake. Straight line speed, as I said, is key, and there's a lot of overtaking avenues. So what sort of a race is it that Mercedes can expect? We'll only know once we get there, because that's how volatile and unpredictable that they have been. And speaking of volatile and unpredictable, let's have a word about McLaren, shall we? Now, McLaren actually have been making news in recent times for reasons beyond their track performances. And that reason, of course, is the fact that they signed a promising Australian, Oscar Piastri, to replace their current underperforming Australian in Daniel Ricciardo. Now, that being said, leaving all that aside, it's still worth noting that Monza 2021 was the highlight for McLaren in quite some time, because Daniel Ricciardo, the man who's going to be leaving the team at the end of the season, took the team's first race win in over 10 years. And in fact, because Lando Norris finished second, McLaren also ended up claiming their first 1-2 in over a decade. So it was a pretty good weekend for them. Can we expect to see something more from them like that this week? We don't know, because again, even McLaren, their struggles have seemed very circuit-specific at times. They looked badly off the pace at Zandvoort, but maybe Monza will actually be suited to their car a little bit more. They would certainly hope so, because again, they are losing a lot of ground to Alpine in that battle for fourth in the Constructors' Championship. So they'd be wanting to get some points on the board, maybe potentially prevent the Alpines from getting higher positions, but Alpine will, of course, be the favorites. The real question is, can McLaren actually capture some of that magic that they found last time around? McLaren fans will certainly be hoping so. And the last major question, by the way, which I feel the need to address is, will this be the race where some of the, drivers who could very well not even be on the track next season maybe stake a claim to their seat being safe? Now, the two drivers I've demonstrated here, of course, on the other side of the screen is Mick Schumacher. Closer to me is Yuki Tsunoda. Neither of them have been confirmed for drives in 2023. In fact, Schumacher will be ending his association with the Ferrari Drivers Academy at the end of 2022, which puts his spot at Haas in some doubt. Because remember, Haas normally do take one Ferrari, academy driver. It's part of the agreement that they have with Ferrari, and that's one of the reasons why Schumacher got the seat. He's not signed a contract yet for the next season, whereas Kevin Magnussen is, as we know, already confirmed. Same with Yuki Tsunoda. He's not been confirmed for an AlphaTauri seat just yet. And it doesn't help matters that AlphaTauri are looking elsewhere for drivers for next year. Again, remember, there's rumors that Pierre Gasly, Tsunoda's teammate, is going to be leaving the team for Alpine, which would mean they'd have one vacancy, and one of those vacancies is reportedly going to be filled by Colton Herta, the IndyCar driver who has been nicknamed Hooligan Herta during his rookie days, but who does have plenty of speed. Now, the key is, even if they let Gasly go, even if they keep Gasly in the team, there's still one spot there because, Tsunoda doesn't have a contract. So can these two drivers, promising young drivers as they are, actually ensure that they, maybe put in a couple more good performances and change their team's minds? Because again, right now, nothing is confirmed yet. We don't know who's getting either the Haas seat or the AlphaTauri seat, but maybe some good drivers there can secure their spots in the team for at least another season. Can that happen? I'd certainly be hoping so, but we'll only know once the race comes our way. And that is it for this edition of the F1 preview. This time, of course, we're previewing the Italian Grand Prix. Thank you all so much for joining us, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, tap the bell icon so you know when we're going live, and of course, don't forget to leave us a comment and tell us if you have any more questions for us. We love hearing from you guys. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And last but not least, download the AajTak app for more such breaking news and, in fact, previews, analysis from not just the world of F1, but the world of sport. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Rayas, and I hope to see you soon, but bye-bye for now.